Hello and welcome to Study IQ. I hope you are all in good spirits today, and I also hope that your preparation is going up to the mark. Today, we are going to talk about cooperatives in India. Recently, a House panel, that is a House Committee on Agriculture, Animal Husbandry and Food Processing, submitted a report to Parliament where they gave many recommendations to help the cooperatives or help cooperative movement in India. The committee recommended to ensure federal features are intact. Recently, Ministry of Cooperation has also been created. We know that Ministry of Cooperation is headed by Amit Shah. So some recommendations or some advices have been given by this House committee to the Ministry of Cooperation. We'll talk about that in the latter half of our discussion. But in general, in this discussion, you will get the idea of cooperatives in India. What is the meaning of cooperative? How the cooperative movement emerged in India? What is the history of cooperative or cooperative movement in India? Did it start after independence or did it begin before independence itself? What is the status today? Are there any successful examples of cooperatives or cooperative movement in India? Are there any issues? What are the problems? And then eventually we'll talk about what are certain recommendations of this House committee. That would be the agenda, or that would be the flow of this particular discussion. To get to know all that information, stay with me. I am your friend Rahul Saigaonkar. You can follow me on this particular ID @RahulSai222. If you have any doubts, any queries, if you want to connect with me, you can always message me on Instagram. I do reply on Saturdays and Sundays. And if you're preparing for any competitive course, do visit our website studyiq.com. Alternatively, you can also download the app from Google Play Store where you'll get all the information about us. And do not forget to use the code RAHUL33, capital RAHUL33 without any spaces. If you buy any course, UPSC, State PSC, Judiciary, RBI, SEBI, whatever course you buy, just use this code. You will get a huge discount of 33% on Study IQ platform. All right, let's begin our discussion. Let's begin with the definition or the idea of cooperative. Now, idea of cooperative, or the root word behind cooperative, is cooperation, co-opt, where people come together. Cooperative is defined as an autonomous association of persons who unite voluntarily. It is a community-centric approach or a community-centric initiative where people come together to achieve certain target. It may be economic target where people save money, people use their saving. There are many examples of thrift saving in India, right? For example, the nidhis or the bishis in India, where the local community or local people come together, they pool in the money so that one person from the community is helped every month, every week, or whatever time they decide. So cooperative is an autonomous institution or an organization where people come together voluntarily to achieve certain target. It may be economic, social, cultural, whatever it is, right? And again, the decision making of cooperative is democratic. So it's a jointly owned, democratically controlled enterprise. All right. So cooperative is people coming together where decisions are taken jointly, where decisions are taken based on the voting or based on democratic principles. Now the question is, so why did the cooperative movement begin in India? Now, cooperative movement started in India in the last quarter of 19th century, mainly to safeguard the farmers from the clutches of money lenders. Now, although it started in late quarter or the last quarter of 19th century in India, it has its history in UK or in Britain, where industrial revolution brought out upheaval. It changed the economic structure, it changed the social structure, it also changed the political structure to some extent. So an upheaval brought these changes. For the first time, cooperative movement started in Rockdale near Manchester, and from there it started in India also. Why? Predominantly as a part of saving farmers from the clutches of money lenders. We know that India has been an agrarian country. It is still an agrarian country, where the peasants mainly rely on rails. The peasants rely on inputs. And if we talk about British India, the British seldom did any investment in agriculture. No irrigation, no fertilizer, but they did want land revenue, land rent. So what did the farmers had to do? The farmers had to take money from the money lenders, because of which they were impoverished, they were debt ridden. The problems were these. Apart from that, add to it, I say, the land fragmentation problems. Land in India is getting fragmented more and more. Now in such a scenario, peasants or farmers were completely impoverished. So to help the farmers, basically a cooperative movement means where one farmer, say a farmer has half hectare of land. So out of that, he's not able to sustain his family. He's not able to sustain the livelihood. So what would that farmer do? In a cooperative movement, one farmer who has half hectare they combine their resources with many other farmers. So people come together for farming, right? Where they get their profit and they become free from the money lenders. Just an example. This is how the cooperative movement started formally. But even before that, history is replete with so many examples of cooperation and cooperative activities in India. It is known by so many different names, predominantly, I would say, from the monetary perspective. For example, Devarai, Vanarai, Nidhis, Kuris, Bishis. Bishis is very prominent, Fads, by different names in different regions. Thrift saving or community-centric saving, community-centric pooling of people for some particular thing, right? So these are many examples. Women-centric organization, farmer-centric organization. In fact, today, cooperatives are rampant in India in almost all the sectors. But formally, cooperative movement began during the British era, not after independence, before independence itself. Formally, through a legislation, the British brought Cooperative Societies Act in 1904. This was on the recommendation of the first Famine Commission in 1901. Sir Law was heading it. So they suggested cooperatives as a solution to ameliorate the problems of the farmers. This formally began the idea of cooperative movement in India. Later on, the problems of this act were changed. The act was amended multiple times in 1912, later on also. And then in the Montagu-Chelmsford reforms of 1919, ultimately cooperatives was pushed into provincial subjects. And even till today, the cooperatives is a state subject. After independence also, that time provinces, now states. When the Congress, it attained majority in multiple provinces in 1937, they again revived interest in reorganizing the cooperative movement in India. But after 1947, cooperative movement was promoted heavily. Why? Because by the name itself, we know it is co-opting people. And Gandhi's idea was that itself, Swaraj, where people come together, people find solution to their own problems. Gandhi and Nehru were proponents of the cooperative movement. It is because of them the cooperative movement got pushed in India. In 1949, J.C. Kumarappa committee was set up. The committee was basically on land reforms in India, but it recommended cooperatives or cooperative movement as one of the solutions for resolving the agrarian crisis in India. Based on the recommendations of J.C. Kumarappa committee itself, later on, cooperatives, they became a part and parcel of the 5-year plans, the first 5-year plan, second 5-year plan. In 5-year plans, cooperative promotion, it became a norm. In 1958, the National Development Council, that is the head of Planning Commission at that time, they also recommended for bringing a national policy on cooperatives. They also recommended that there has to be training of personnel and how to set up cooperative marketing societies. This was also recommended. Ultimately, it did come in 1962. National Cooperative Development Corporation was set up. Even till today, it works for promotion of cooperatives in India. And today, if we talk about cooperatives, they are everywhere. Right? A landmark change came in 21st century. Acknowledging the importance of cooperatives in India, in 2011, 97th Constitutional Amendment Act was passed by the UPA government, where they added a new part 9B after part 9A, which deals with the municipalities. So another part was added here regarding cooperatives working in India. It also changed the language of the fundamental rights. One of the fundamental rights, Article 19, where we have right to freedom, and now we also have a freedom to create or to form cooperatives, right? It's a fundamental right to form cooperatives, not just associations. Cooperatives is also included now in the constitution itself. Now, so we understood the movement, cooperative movement in India. It started during the British times. It got a push after independence. In 2011, the cooperatives were given a constitutional recognition. In fact, this was challenged. A case was decided last year itself. We'll talk about that. But what has been the progress? Has the cooperative movement or have cooperatives been a success in India? Now, if we talk about cooperatives, it's a mixed bag. Yes, there are a lot of success stories, but there are many issues also. As of today in India, there are about 0.85 million cooperative societies of different kinds, where the membership is of about 290 million people. In almost all the villages, there are cooperatives. At least one cooperative in every village, it is there. The membership of these cooperatives, it is about 30% of the national population itself. Today, there are 17 national cooperative societies. There are 390 state level federations. There are 2,705 district federations and more than 95,000 primary agricultural societies. And I would say there is no sector in India which is not touched by cooperatives in India. So it is quite a success. If we look at the progress after independence, a formal push was given through the 5-year plans, through different ideas, through different institutions. Ultimately, constitutional status did come, because of which the numbers have increased a lot. There are so many successful examples. Whenever we talk about cooperatives, a prime example comes in our mind, that is Amul. Amul is a cooperative, milk cooperative, which has been quite success. Apart from that, we have NAFED, we have IFCO, right? IFCO, the fertilizer company, it is a cooperative itself. IFCO, CRIBCO, there are so many cooperatives from fertilizer also. Then there is Coordinate Rural Development Trust. Apart from that, we can talk about cooperatives in the financial sector. In the money sector, there are so many cooperatives. There are so many cooperative banks. Apart from that, cooperative sugar mills, the farmer producer organization. There are so many things now. Cooperatives have touched every sector in India. But is cooperative sector free of problems, free of issues? No, it is not free of issues. Every other day you do see a problem with cooperatives, especially cooperative banks. So many scams and scandals in cooperative banks. So there are some issues going on with cooperatives in India. The first and the biggest issue is this itself, that the state cooperative laws are very different. They vary in terms of implementation. In fact, this has been a problem. I told you there was a case which was filed on the 97th Constitutional Amendment Act itself. Now, the 97th Constitutional Amendment Act, it was brought by the central government. But these cooperatives are under the domain of state. So it was challenged. The rules and regulations, whatever was brought. The case went on. It was filed in 2013. In fact, some provisions were held as void by the Gujarat High Court, right? Later on, the Supreme Court decided by a majority order where they upheld the validity of 97th Constitutional Amendment Act. That means cooperatives have a constitutional status, although some of the other things, some of the other related things, especially with respect to setting up the cooperatives, functioning the cooperatives, which the central government brought, it was changed. Now, this is a federal issue. Federal issue means, see, in the state list, we have something called as the cooperatives, correct? So, who has to bring laws, rules and regulations? It is the states. But the central government brought the 97th Constitutional Amendment Act. And remember, if it is impacting the state, in 2013, it was argued in the case itself that if it is impacting the state, then 97th Constitutional Amendment Act technically should have been ratified by 50% of the states also, which was not done. This was one of the grounds of arguments in the cases, right? Supreme Court did not accept all these things. Supreme Court said that 97th Amendment is valid, but certain changes were brought. So this eventually brought a question of federalism. Can the central government bring rules and regulations for the cooperatives, which is under the domain of states? And that is why the issue is still there. We'll talk about that again in some time. But state cooperative laws, they have brought, right? Many states have brought many state cooperative laws. In fact, this issue has become complicated. Why? I'm quite sure you must have heard about many banks, multi-state cooperative banks, right? You must have heard about the PMC bank here, Punjab and Maharashtra Cooperative Bank. There is Shamra Vittal Bank. There are so many banks which are multi-state cooperatives. And state laws, different states have brought different state cooperative laws, and their implementation also differs greatly. So this has complicated the issue of multi-state cooperative institutions especially, because of which the center has swooped in, right? So multiplicity of laws is a problem. This has also created regional disparity in terms of cooperatives. Some states have pushed cooperatives a lot. Some states have done abysmal. For example, cooperatives in Maharashtra are quite extensive. If you talk about the success of sugar industry in Maharashtra, it is mainly because of the cooperative movement in Maharashtra. If you talk about Andhra Pradesh, cooperative movement is quite extensive. But there are so many states where cooperatives are not pushed. Apart from that, there is a problem with cooperative sector, especially they have not focused on the demand. They have focused more on supply. And again, I am talking from the perspective of credit, cooperative credit. They have not focused about what exactly is the demand of people, rather than they focus simply on putting in money, say in agriculture, but putting money where? Is it for capital formation or is it simply for your day-to-day activities? That is a thing, that is a change that has to be brought. Apart from that, there is a dual problem of lack of accountability and lack of recognition with respect to cooperatives. First thing is lack of accountability. Yes, we have seen so many scandals. I've told you about different bank scandals, different cooperative bank scandals, right? In fact, during the demonetization, this was quite highlighted that cooperative banks, initially they were allowed to accept the demonetized notes. Later on, they were banned, right? Later on, they were stopped. So where is the accountability? Yes, some cooperatives are doing quite excellent, but where is the recognition for them also? Apart from that, there is a problem with the working of cooperative also. In many cooperatives, there is a lack of competent officials. There are no professionals. People who are working there, how the recruitment goes on, nobody knows. Many a times, there is a lot of political interference in the cooperative. Say, if it is a cooperative bank, I'm quite sure you must have experienced this in your district, in your village, in your taluk, that the banking officials are appointed at the whims and fancies of the political executive. Another problem with these cooperatives is lack of capital formation. Means the money that is given, the credit that is given, it is seldom used for capital formation. As I told you, the focus should be on demand aspect rather than supply aspect. And added to it, many cooperatives, they run the financial business and there is a problem of NPA for sure, right? Non-performing assets. There are rising overdues of many of the cooperatives. But nonetheless, when we talk about NPAs of the bigger banks and the cooperatives, it would still be less, right? Because there is a concept of thrift saving, right? The thrift economy runs at the grassroots level, because of which the recovery rates are quite higher even in comparison to the bigger scheduled banks, right? And another generic issue with the cooperatives is the lack of awareness, which is quite known to everybody. So there are issues, there are problems, and to resolve these issues itself, recently the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Animal Husbandry and Food Processing, they submitted a report. This committee was led by BJP member C. Gaddi Gowder. They tabled the report in Lok Sabha, where they have given certain recommendations to the Ministry of Cooperation. They said that cooperative societies is a state subject and the matter was also sub judice till last year. Supreme Court gave a lot of clarity, and that is why the committee has advised the Cooperation Ministry, which is headed by Amit Shah, that utmost prudence has to be exercised while chalking out the process or the procedure for welfare of cooperatives. Yes, there are programs, there are plans which are needed at the national level, but they should not interfere with the federal features. Apart from that, the committee also recommended to come up with a new national cooperation policy. In fact, work is already in progress for this. They advise that the Cooperation Ministry should do it after careful consideration by taking the views of all the stakeholders involved. Apart from this, the Ministry of Cooperation's problems were also highlighted by this committee. The Cooperation Ministry is rather new. It is running through temporary offices, temporary accommodations. The strength right now of this ministry is only 43. So the committee advised that all these issues have to be resolved, because first, if the Cooperation Ministry is established, then the cooperatives can be pushed further. Also, the committee asked the Ministry of Cooperation to formulate many effective policies to facilitate existence, growth and development of cooperatives in India. And these recommendations, these advices will have a bearing, because the Ministry of Cooperation is working on Multi-State Cooperative Societies Amendment Bill 2022. How will this shape out? We'll know about that soon. Whenever this news comes, whenever this bill is introduced, we'll talk about that again on Study IQ. But as I told you, this multi-state cooperative society has become a federal issue, because cooperatives, they come under the domain of states. Multi-state cooperatives, under which state's domain? That is the question. Should center play a role? Of course, the center has to play a role. But now the advice has come here that center's role should be such that should be so prudent that it should not impinge on the federal features of the country. That has been advised by the House Committee. Let us see what happens. Let's see how these recommendations would be fulfilled by the Cooperation Ministry. We'll keep an eye on that. Whenever an update comes, we'll discuss that on Study IQ. But that is it right now in this discussion. I hope you have understood the cooperative movement in general. A question on mains, or a question in mains can come on this, right? Discuss about the cooperative movement in India. Has it been a success or has it been a failure? Critically analyze what has been the situation of cooperatives in India. Such questions might come. Right. With that note, let me end my discussion. Thank you for watching this. Jai Hind.